Hi, Tommy Heffernan, vet and consultant here with Precision Microbes. So Tech and 10 this week I'm going to talk about coccidiosis. Here we go. I suppose we get a lot of questions about the use of Precision Microbes, unique pro and postbiotic liquids to control coccidiosis. And unfortunately, it's not a preventative for coccidiosis. So let's look at coccidiosis, look and see where Precision Microbes can be applied, and it's usually post as a helping with recovery product. But coccidiosis is something that a lot of farms are dealing with. Typically, some of the trends, when I qualified 20 plus years ago, the trends we saw on coccidiosis were typically younger calves. We didn't see it past 6 months to 8 months of age. And I think that's an important thing when we think about immunity. We are seeing it in older stock now as well. So when we think about coccidia, it's a protozoan parasite, Eimeria species. There's a couple of species. Eimeria bovis is the common one. And there's one albimensis, Eimeria albimensis. This is an important distinction sometimes to understand which species you have, because what we typically would have seen from birth maybe to weaning or turnout was older calves, but that was pre-patent period. From ingestion of these oocysts to the clinical signs of the disease, it was typically 21 days with bovis. But with albimensis, we can see it in younger calves. It's a shorter period of time. We tend to see it more outside in pasture management. Again, that's just my experience. So we certainly see more of this albimensis species. So what is coccidiosis doing in the gut? So with the ingestion of oocysts, the clinical symptoms occur from damage to the lining of the gut. So inside the gut's a lumen, you have all these villi, but there's one layer of epithelium, and the oocysts get in there and they damage the epithelial cells, particularly of the lower and large intestine, and this leads to clinical symptoms. This is important because also there's a difference between when we see clinical disease and the calf is actually infected. And it's a very challenging disease on farm. But ultimately the clinical symptoms can be the obvious ones: scour, straining, black bloody scour, animals losing weight. But we can also see kind of a subclinical impact, which is thrift, animals not doing well. They might not all have scour. So it can vary, but from now on, it's one of the diseases we think about on farms with older calves around weaning time, turnout and at pasture, as well as your typical parasites. So I suppose one of the things I would say is that everyone loves a farm-specific plan for coccidiosis, and we get asked a lot of questions. I always get asked about it. It's very much one that you work through with your own vet. You can use fecal egg counts, but the problem with fecal egg counts can be that if it's in the pre-patent period, so the disease is occurring, the fecal egg counts might be lower than you'd expect. That doesn't always rule out the disease. So it's really around monitoring the clinical signs, the history on the farm, working with your own vet. What are the risk factors? So, for example, if we have a lot of mixing of age groups, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure on calves around weaning, if we're turning out and we've dirty areas around troughs, they're all increasing the risk factors. And then you put the fecal egg counts in there as well. So it's a very farm-specific thing, I would say. Because the disease is such a challenge, certainly with housing, we want all-in, all-out systems, and the oocysts, the coccidiosis, are very difficult. So there's only certain disinfectants that actually kill them. So I'm a big fan of cleaning out the sheds, steam cleaning when calves are out of it, and breaking that cycle and using appropriate disinfectants that will kill. But the problem is our cows can have small numbers of it, and it builds up, the infection pressure builds up over time. So it is a disease we see later on in the season, but some farms will see it out at pasture. A simple tip that I always found worked quite well is that if we're feeding calves at pasture, that we're moving troughs around, that calves aren't congregating, defecating in certain areas, particularly if we're using training paddocks, the same paddocks each year, just moving troughs around. Really, the timing of your preventative dosing is really critical. So you want a bit of immunity to build up, but you also want to kill the coccidiosis in the calves. That is such a farm-specific thing. It's hard. There's different products like clasrilols or toltuzerols. That's a very farm-specific decision. And even weather conditions, a turnout and other stress factors may change the timing. So it's not something I'll be getting into. But for the question we always get asked, where does Precision Microbes Pro and Postbiotic Liquid fit in the whole coccidiosis story? So if we have batches of calves that have got coccidiosis, Precision Microbes can be used as a recovery product, because if we think about what the parasite is doing to the digestive tract, damage to the epithelium, we're getting very good and positive feedback on older calves that are recovering, and the dose rate's higher than normal. It's about 100 mils daily for 4 to 5 days, and you can give it orally because these calves are often off milk, and on feed. So you can give it orally. And again, hydrostim or liquid electrolyte can be used as well in these calves if you want to, if they're, quite severely, if there's severe digestive damage done and dehydration. But Precision Microbes can be used really as a supportive recovery product. What you ideally don't want to be getting into that scenario is that you need Precision Microbes, that you want to have a control plan that looks at all the risk factors on farm, timing your preventative doses so you can reduce the risk while the calf is building, or the group of calves is building that level of immunity, which is a tricky thing. It's an area of interest to me looking at the other potential products that we're working with in our research as well. It's not something we're forgetting about. We definitely think we'd love to have something in this space that helps with coccidiosis, but currently Precision Microbes, to answer that question we get so frequently, is a recovery product for those calves that have clinical symptoms or disease issues, as a recovery product at 100 ml daily for 4 to 5 days. So that's Tech and 10 this week. See you next week.